At that time, I was owed money, but they wasn't paying it. You know what I'm saying? I think they were trying to starve me out. As hard as you work for your money, there's at least 2 or 3 people out there working just as hard to get it from you.
I was there when Dre told me he would sell his soul to the devil for $1 million. And I swear right now, devil got to have a receipt for his ass.
Hey, yo, Dre, man, I got some heat for you, man. I want you to check out this tape, dog. You know what I'm saying? I want to be put on the Aftermath. How can I be down, man? Well, you know how we get down over here. Nah, man, how y'all get down? Well, you know you got to unask some of that shoot. What? Well, you want to fuck with the Aftermath, hey, right? Man, what the fuck you doing? Yo, mailman, go give me the KY, dog. Yeah, man, but... Yeah. That's how all y'all get down over there, man?
Here you go.
Yeah, man, go get the ecstasy pills, man. It's gonna be a wild one tonight. I want to take this nigga manhood and his music.
Alright, peace, y'all. Peace. So in this video, I'm going to be discussing the label Death Row. Alright? Now, this label has a lot of significant ties to destruction, alright, of the urban community. Alright? Now, most people don't know. I'm going to explain some things that took place in Death Row, but for those that don't know, this was a very satanic record label. All right. A lot of things took place people are unaware of, but I'm going to break it down in this video and give you guys a clear viewpoint on how a lot of this blood spill that took place throughout hip hop was caused by Death Row. All right. So the owner, one of the owners of Death Row, which was Suge Knight, started out hanging around NWA in their early careers. All right. But he got his notoriety by being a bodyguard for Bobby Brown. All right. Now, most of you guys know that story already. He was bodyguarding for Bobby Brown in the, before that he was playing football. But most people don't know this part, though, that Bobby Brown wasn't paying his drug dealers when he was at the height of his notoriety. All right, so they put a hit on his life. All right, now, rumor has it that Suge Knight actually saved Bobby Brown from getting killed. So at this time, Suge was also managing an artist by the name of Chocolate, all right, who wrote a few songs on the Vanilla Ice album. All right, but he wasn't getting paid for his records. All right, so the rapper Chocolate actually called Suge Knight for help. All right, and this is where you got that whole balcony story where Suge Knight actually hung Vanilla Ice off the balcony. All right, but the honest truth is that Suge and Chocolate actually ended up suing BMI, all right, for unpaid royalties. All right, and that is actually how they wound up getting paid from Vanilla Ice. All right, so all of that hanging them off the balcony to get the royalties was, that was a made up story. All right, now, don't get me wrong, Vanilla Ice did admit that, Suge took him on the balcony and, explained to him like, hey, listen, if I don't get paid, man, you can go off the side of this balcony. All right. Now, a guy by the name of Dick Griffey who owned Solar Records. All right. Now, Solar Records was a big label at the time in the early 80s. All right. Early 90s. They had groups like Babyface, the Whispers, who else? The Deal. All right. Bunch of groups, Shalimar. All right. But Dick Griffey had a meeting with Suge and Dr. Dre, right? And he basically showed them how to start their own company. All right, he gave them the ropes on how to create their own record label. All right. Now, what I truly believe is that they used the money from the lawsuit to actually create Death Row, the label. All right. Not basically, getting everything financed, but they actually had the money to create the label, right? Now, the initial owners of Death Row was Dick Griffey, okay, who I mentioned, the DOC, all right, Dr. Dre and Suge Knight. All right, but down the line, things actually changed. All right, I'm gonna get to that later on in the video. All right, so now the way that Snoop came into play was through Warren G. All right, so it was Warren G, Nate Dogg, and Snoop. All right, which was a group that they had, which was called 213. All right, now most people don't know this either, but Warren G and Dr. Dre are actually stepbrothers. All right, and this is how Dr. Dre was able to receive the demo tape of Snoop Dogg. All right, and like I said, you gotta know somebody. All right, I mean, you gotta have some connections in this business. It's not just gonna be you walk in a label and people just gonna sign you. You gotta know somebody, right? So Death Row as a label was still working from Solar Recording Studios, all right? And Suge wanted his own atmosphere. All right, so now they got a guy by the name of Mike Harry-O Harris to basically fund the business, all right? So the story is Harry-O needed to basically launder his money, all right? So he reached out to his attorney, David Kenner, to have a meeting with Suge Knight. Now, David Kenner is actually a criminal lawyer, but ended up in the entertainment business down the line, and I'm gonna get to that too. Now, the deal was the label that Harry-O created, which was Godfather ENT, would actually be the parent company to Death Row, all right? So Harry-O from jail basically invested $1.5 million, okay, into Death Row for exchange for 50% of the company, all right? Now, most people don't know this, but Harry-O was responsible for putting Denzel Washington in Hollywood as well, all right? Harry-O actually produced a Broadway play by the name of Checkmates, which actually did good, okay, and it gave Denzel Washington his first start, all right, in Hollywood, all right? So Harry-O is definitely responsible for a lot of careers. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't hear a lot of these artists today, all right? Now, with Death Row actually having finance to actually produce records now with the help of Harry-O, Dr. Dre and Snoop created the song Deep Cover, all right, which did really good and helped Death Row plant their feet, okay, in the music business, all right? Now, this song actually gave Death Row the legs to create The Chronic, all right? Now, I already spoke about the Chronic album and how this was actually a design to bring in the drug culture in hip-hop, right? But when The Chronic was actually recorded, an individual by the name of John McClane Jr., all right, brought the Chronic album to Interscope, which were about to go out of business, all right? Now, when they was recording The Chronic, there was no labels that wanted to get behind this album. You know, they went to Sony, they went to Warner, they went to all these different labels, but nobody wanted to actually distribute this album. When John McClane passed the demo to Jimmy Iovine, this is how they got, you know, signed to Interscope, all right? Now, Jimmy Iovine played the divide and conquer role that Jerry Heller actually played, all right? Where he decided to separate Dr. Dre and Suge Knight from Dick Griffey, right? And they basically cut Dick Griffey out of the Death Row deal, all right? Did him dirty, all right? Now, in my personal opinion, Death Row at this time was actually promoting the gang culture, all right? Which caused a lot of violence in the urban communities, all right? When Death Row was, you know, on the height of their career, with albums such as The Chronic and Doggy Style, a lot of the gangs started to migrate, okay, to other states, all right? So the Bloods and Crips was starting to, you know, transfer over to different states of that nature, right? But like I said, they were actually the forefront of gangster rap. All right, this gangster rap was a genre that was popular in the early 90s. All right, now you got drill and all these other types of rap, but gangster rap was actually a genre, all right, in the early 90s. Now we're gonna talk about the Snoop sacrifice, right? Now we all know the video "Murder Was the Case," right, where he's basically selling his soul to the devil and things of that nature. But the death of Philip Waldemarian, okay, was basically a payoff that Snoop had to give, okay, for his height of success. Now, most people don't know this, but Dr. Dre's brother, okay, when his album dropped, his brother died in a car crash, all right? So, there was a lot of blood spill on that label when it first came up, all right? But they said that Philip Waldemarian, who they said actually had a gun, Waldemarian told Snoop and his bodyguard that they couldn't be there, all right, on his gang territory, all right? And apparently they followed him, all right? Now, when they followed him, all right, he backed off. Waldemarian backed off, and they proceeded to, start problems with him. So he told them, I don't want any problems with y'all. Y'all just in the wrong neighborhood. And, that's when they got hostile and they shot Waldemarian. All right. Now, I want to talk about this in particular, right? The criminal lawyer, David Kenner, all right, who actually got Snoop off of a murder charge with no jail time served. Okay, mind you, no jail time served. All right. He got indulged with the entertainment business. All right, he got overindulged with the entertainment business, and I found this story to be kind of weird because I was like, how does he get off of a murder charge, right? Not telling how much they paid or whatever, but this is what I'm saying: blood spill all over this label. All right. Now, I'm gonna get into Tupac's situation real quick, and I'm gonna break some things down. So, Tupac was actually already a star on Interscope, all right, before all of this stuff took place. All right, but with all the controversy that basically followed him, Interscope was like washing their hands with him. These record labels, they do the same thing to all of these artists. Once you go to jail, they pretty much don't want to, bail you out or, have any ties or dealings with you. And then when you come home, you have to find a different label, right? But it was basically the so-called rape case that took place, which I believe Tupac was being framed for, okay, going against the elite, all right? And after he was shot, okay, and then sentenced to a year in jail, he asked Interscope to bail him out, and they basically said no, all right? And his bail was at $1.4 million. Now, ask yourself this, with Tupac being, an actor at this time and, the biggest star on that label, I'm sure he made well over $1.4 million for Interscope. So why couldn't they bail him out? It goes in hand with a lot of things. But like I said, when you breaking that oath with the elite, they don't have no ties for you. So while in jail, Tupac basically reached out to Suge Knight, right? Now there's stories out there of him actually making a pact while he was in his cell, of him selling his soul, by an ex-girlfriend.
David got that together, left. Him and Suge talked for a couple more minutes, and then, they left. And, it was a little crazy because, and I don't mean this literally, but I guess once they left, he was excited, but he did make this comment where he was like, I just sold my soul to the devil. Like,
so he basically told Suge, all right, he would guarantee him 6 million copies sold if he bailed him out. Now, I'm gonna go into why this was a bad idea, but I'm just gonna focus on the business aspect of it. So when Pac dropped All Eyes on Me when released from jail, and he sold 600,000 copies his first week, you know, he was definitely going to get Suge his money back, all right? But since Suge was keeping all of Pac's money, all right, through their agreement, all right, he became resentful and wanted off of death row. All right, now, this was a bad idea for Pac to actually agree to paying Suge Knight $6 million for a $1.4 million contract, because that would mean it would take you years to basically recoup that money. All right, he was misunderstood that, you know, he would be able to pay that off with one album. And, you know, when Suge is taking all of your money for shows and, you know, everything is adding up, you know, that, like I said, a rap advance is exactly what it means, an advance, all right? There's interest that comes with that, all right? It's like a loan. It's just the same thing as a loan. You know, it's meant to keep you in bondage. So when you agree to give someone a certain amount, you tax yourself with interest. You know, he taxed himself with interest, which was a bad idea. Now, I'm going to read this article by a guy named Gabi Rahimi. He says, he had a tremendous amount of sadness. I would find a lot of the pictures that I took him in, he would sort of be looking down at his rings and contemplating. You could just see that he was a million miles away. Colin Wolfe went on to say, Tupac and Death Row felt like a great marriage at first. Great place to go to get that Cali gangster shit. Once he hooked up with Suge and his whole camp, it was like signing a deal with the devil. I guess his ego got in the way, being that he wanted to be thug life. But I think he found after a while that, yeah, this whole thing ain't right. That's why everybody left. All of those cars and houses, none of that was in their names. All right. Then Wendy Data went on to say, I did notice in the summer right before he died, he had stopped wearing the Death Row chain. He started wearing an angel pendant. That was when I reached out to him to make sure everything was okay. He's like, I'm going to be leaving Death Row. I want to start shopping a deal for my company. Since I helped the East Coast and the West Coast go to war, my first project I want to put out is called One Nation. And that's what I was working on when he was shot. Now, Tupac, there's stories out there, you know, of Tupac basically signing that slave deal, basically. But he signed the Death Row for a 3-album deal, all right? Now, here's the trickery, right? All Eyes on Me was actually a double album, all right? It was considered a double album. So they, back then in those days, they, you know, separated those. So that was basically considered 2 albums, all right? And then, you know, he came out with the 7-Day Theory, all right? And then after he dropped that, Pac was going to do his own thing. But I found his story to be kind of similar to Biggie's story, where they both wanted to get off of these labels, right? And ended up dying. So this record label, Death Row, was pretty much dangerous, all right? And there's not a doubt in my mind that Pac was hit to avoid leaving Death Row, all right? Which is why, you know, a lot of those songs were still on that label, all right, after he died. You know, they kept releasing albums, and it was a business ploy. But this label, Death Row, has a lot of negative energy following it. So, like I said, Death Row is basically the forefront for a lot of nonsense that took place in the urban community, all right? Gang ties, you know, all kinds of nonsense, violence, East and West Coast beef, all of these things, man, was causing a detrimental problem to the urban communities, all right? So with that being said, I hope I broke down this Death Row record label for you guys. Got a few more videos to go at. I'm gonna do Cat Williams and a few other people next. And yeah, peace, y'all.
Hey, oh, wait.